In this video, we'll be looking at changing our HUD to use the Game Creator Stats module. Up until now, we've been just doing it with the core and using our own little variables here, but we're going to replace this and do it with the Stats module instead. And so we'll convert over this HUD that we've created before and use the stats to manipulate that. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to go into my packages and look for Game Creator 2 and look for my stats module, which is stats 2. Here we go. And we'll import that. And then we'll go up here to the install. And we want to install the examples here. So let's install that. So that will install the classes and the UI. And notice that the examples for Game Creator Core have changed because there was an update to Game Creator Core. So I'll just update those while I'm here. So we've got stats. So let's look at the stats module. I'm going to go to the official documentation. Let's just see settings here. And then we can see that we have got a stats entry there. And in updates, it'll show us that it's installed. So let's go and look at the documentation. So the documentation site, docs.gamecreator.io. So we can look at the stats module documentation, and it tells you how this is supposed to work. So if we go to setup after the install, so it tells you how to install it, tells you where the examples are, and let's see, classes. So here's how this really thing stats actually works. It's very similar to an RPG stats system. So you have character classes. So each class has a collection of stats and attributes, and then the player will have traits. And then a trait is, you'll tell the trait which class the player is, and then the class determines what stats and attributes you have. So the attributes could be something like health or stamina, something that changes frequently up and down. So your health and your stamina. In our case, it's going to be health and stamina, which is our two attributes. The stats are more like things that don't change that often, or they may only change when the player levels up, or as results of a formula of some sort. So you've got like the example of strength or constitution. In our case, we're going to be using a max health at a stat and a max stamina stat, I think you need. So because when you set these up, you need it asks you what the stat is. So we'll see that in action. So let's go back to the project. So first of all, let's look at the examples that the stats module comes with. So we've got some examples here and an assets folder here. So you can go through these scenes and look at how to do all these different things from looking at the examples. So the stats examples comes with stats classes. So folder. So in here you've got like a knight, a mage, and a thief. So you can see the attributes it has: hit points, magic points, and stamina. And I'm not sure if that could be mana, I guess. And then you've got all the other stuff like XP, level, max XP, HP, etc., max stamina. So it comes with a lot of stats already that we could just use because we want HP and we want stamina. So if we go into the stats folder here, you can look and see stamina and max stamina is there. And under the health, you've got a HP and a max HP. And so you've got this formula too that it uses. So it calculates the max HP based on the level. We're not going to actually use the formula, but it's there anyway because we're not leveling up at this time. But if you put in leveling up, then it would automatically do it for you there. So the HP attribute has a max value of the max HP, which is right now it's set to 1. But the formula is going to calculate it anyway. So the start percentage is 1, so 100% you start with. So, and then the stamina has stamina and max stamina being 100. So we have that. The UI section is for displaying in the UI. We'll see how that works a little bit later. So what we can do is just create a class to start with for the player. So let's create a class, stats class, and we'll just call it player because there's only going to be the player class really. And then you need to add the attributes to it. So we need and then we'll see that we'll take HP and we'll go to do stamina, and then you also need the max HP and the max stamina. And stat and max stamina. Okay. And then we need to assign this class to the player. So over in the player, we need to add a component called the traits component, and you tell it what class to use. So we're going to use the player class, and then it brings in the attributes. But we're also going to need 2 more stats because of that formula the HP uses. We also need the XP and the level. So we need the experience stat and we need the level stat. Otherwise, you will get an error when we try to play the game with that in it. So let's see. So now we've got those on there. And let's just see what happens when we play. Player. If you look at the player while you're playing, it shows you how many HP you have. So HP is 100, stamina is 100. So that formula calculated that at level 1, which is right here, at level 1, it has 100 HP. So, and the max HP was changed to 100 as well. So that's basically it. So now we can look at changing over our logic to use the stat system instead of what we did before. So if we look at our damage cube, I think it is. That's just a signal, so we don't need to change that. The health pack, let's take a look at that. That's a signal. We don't need to worry about any of those. So it's good that you don't have to. Okay, so now we need to go into the health manager though. So now where it says increment player stats, we need to use a different instruction. So instead we'll use the stats change attribute instruction. So we can set the attribute HP, and we want to subtract 50, and then we'll move it up here, and then we can remove this one altogether. So now we're subtracting 50, and here we want to change this to check if player stats health less than 0. Instead of the variable, we'll use stats attribute value, and then use HP, and that should do it. And then down here we want to do this as well, and we'll paste that in. We'll move it up, and we want to increment, so we want to say add, and then we can get rid of this too. So, and then actually we were checking to see if we went over the max and we would set our health to the max. You don't actually need that anymore, so we can delete those altogether because we don't need to check it. The stats system automatically knows what the maximum is, so we don't have to do anything. So it'll automatically work. So if we go, let's hit play and look at the stats. The stats will not work with the UI won't work anymore, but when it comes to that, but let's take a look here. The player, so we've got our attributes over there, so we'll watch over here instead of in the UI, because let's just see. If we go over here, so now our HP is 50 on the right hand side, and we can go into our health pack, and now it's 100. And if we go into another health pack, collect another one, it still stays at 100, so we don't have to worry. And then we want to check to see if we can kill the player. HP 50. Yep, and the player dies. HP 0, and we reload. So that seems to be working. And we want to update the stamina system as well. So let's take a look at that. So we have our stamina manager in our HUD panel stamina. This is inside the UI. So here we go. Let's take a look at here. So yeah, we need to change here if player stats stamina. So we'll change that to stats attribute value and stamina. And then we want to increment the stamina minus 5 times delta time. So instead we want to do this. We're going to add the instruction stats change attribute stamina, and then we want to subtract, and then we want minus 5 times delta time. So we want a multiply number of decimals. So 5, and then time dot delta time, because we're in an update method, so we're in on update. So we have to multiply by time dot delta time. So it will subtract that, and then let's move that up and get rid of this one. The slider is still going to be updated, but it won't actually work anymore because we're not updating the variable. So we will fix that afterwards. And then we want to also update this. to use stamina. Okay. And then this increment also needs to be like this one, except positive instead of negative. So let's, instead of subtract, we use add, and then get rid of the original increment. We'll fix the slider later on. And then this trigger to look for a variable name change. What we want here, instead of global variable name change, we're looking for stats on attribute change. So we're looking for any changes in stamina. And then in the conditions, we can change this to stats, attribute value. So if the player stamina equals 0, and we're still having this global variable is sprinting to keep track if we're sprinting or not. So that should be fine. So now it's all converted over. So now we should be able to see our stamina update on the player as we invoke that. So let's take a look at stamina over here. So if I go in, yep, stamina. So it works the same way. When I run, well, let's see if I can go down to 20. And below down to 0, because it's 0. I think we're checking it for 0. So okay. So now we're back in walk. And okay, so that's what we have. I didn't check it for 20, did I? The stamina manager. Just if it's greater than 0, then we're... So we also need to change the sprint method as well. Oh yeah, so here it is, yeah. So we have to change this player stats stamina to look at the actual attribute value of stamina instead of the variable, because we're not updating that variable anymore. And so it was looking for 80. If it's greater than 80, then it will run. Okay. So now it can only be invoked. Stamina can only happen, or running can only happen when stamina is above 80. So if we run it down, okay. So let's see, yeah, it's walking. Now it can run, okay. So I think that's working now. So next we just need to update the HUD UI in order to update that from the actual stats system instead of from the variables that we were using before. Because right now it's looking at these variables and updating it accordingly. So we need to take a look at the UI options for the stat system. So we'll do that next. There's really two options here to hook up the UI. First option is to just re-hook up this UI to the stat system. So that one is not too difficult to do. We can just do that. So let's take a look at that. So in the HUD, we can just go here to the stamina manager, I think is where it is. So in the stamina manager, we have the slider update right here. So if this is when the stamina is reduced by 5, so 5 per second. It also updates the stamina. So instead of updating the variable that we had before, we can just change this to, we're updating the slider with the stats instead, attribute value, and then we have stamina. So that will do that. And then down here where we're updating the slider, when it goes up, when the stamina goes up, we do the same. Attribute value, stamina. I think that should do it. And we shall test it out. It's fairly easy. Let's see. So now the stamina is going down and it's going back up. So it's working, I think. Let's test it's going all the way down. Yep, so it works. So that's all we need to do. And then we can do the same thing for the health. The health system, which is in the player, the health manager, I think it is. And then signal update health. It's right here. The UI manager. So we have this health UI manager. So all it's doing is updating the slider. So we can just do this. Stats, attribute value, HP. And that's all we need to do. So we can go over here and get our HP down, and it can go back up when it health pack. So that's a quick and easy update to the UI. So that's all hooked up now. And now the other option is to use the attribute UI that comes with the stats module. So what we can do is create a new, or actually replace this stamina thing. It's a slider, so instead of a slider we can use something totally different, and then you wouldn't need the background or the fill area at all. So we can sort of replace the slider. So let's remove the component, and then we can delete the background and fill area. And then what we'll do here is add an image component. And we want the source image to be a blockout. Where is it? The blockout square, I think it is. Blockout square, yep. So image type needs to be filled. And we'll select horizontal. And the fill origin would be the left. So then it's like a slider, but you're using an image. And the other thing we want to do is the height can come down to maybe 40, 20, 50, maybe 50. What do we have? Something similar to that. And then we can move it up, maybe. Move it up a little bit. So the width 400, position, let's just keep it a round number 25 maybe. And maybe the height should be, let's do 40, and position Y 100. That should be good. And so in here, what we want to do is add another component to it called attribute UI. Attribute UI. You can also do this by creating a UI. So if you go to Game Creator UI Stats Attribute UI, it'll do the same thing. It'll create an attribute UI like this. So here's the attribute UI. You have to tell it what attribute you want to update into this image. So we want stamina. We also want it to be, it's to do the image fill, this progress. It wants you to tell it what image do you want to update. So we want this one here, the image. So we'll just drag this down here. And then the only other thing you need to do is, let's see, the color. I think the color should update from the stats. But it's asking you what image do you want the color to be updated into. So we want to also use the image here. So that one. So then it'll update the color. It won't stay white. Because here's what it's doing. If we go into the stat here, stamina, this UI, it's going to look in here and it's going to get the color from here. So let's see if, and then once you have that in place, you no longer need to update this slider here. So we can delete that and delete this one. And that should do it. That should do it. It should work the same. Let's test it out. So we have our full, it updated it to yellow. And now it's updating it just as if we were doing it the other way. So it works out pretty good. And then we can do the same for the health. So delete a slider and remove these fill area, the background and the fill area. Get rid of those. And then we add an image with that block out square. And then let's see, position 25, this should be the height, maybe 50, 40. And then we'll move it a little bit like that. And then we add our attribute UI and tell it to update the HP. And we want to use this image as the progress image fill, but make sure we change it to filled and horizontal, and then that should work. And the color as well. We want the image to be the color, and then in the UI manager, actually there's no need to have this at all, because all we're doing is updating the slider. So update health is completely unnecessary now. So where we are calling that in the health manager, we no longer have to signal this to the update health. We're just updating the HP directly. So the attribute UI takes care of that for you. So let's take a look and see. And there it is, it's down to 50. And it's back up to 100. And then you don't have to worry about it going over 100 either. It won't go past the 100 and then back down to 50. So it is working. So that's makes it easier and less instructions in order to do it. It's more automatic. And the other thing we can do is, if we look at the stat here, you can bring in the name or the acronym. You can bring in the description, the icon, etc. All you have to do is tell it where to update that to, because you've got all these different values you can bring in. So it can bring in the text value into a text box, and in the text you can do Text Mesh Pro as well. So let's bring in the acronyms and we'll see just how easy it is to update that. So I'm going to widen out this panel a bit, 600 maybe, and then we'll move it so that, there we go, and then we're going to move these guys. We'll move these guys over like here, and then each one of them I'm going to create a Text Mesh Pro text, just UI text Mesh Pro, and we'll put it in there. And this one should be 00 to start with. Where's the new text? There it is. It's underneath the slider. So if you don't see it on the game view, that's where it is. Okay, so we can move it over here. So what I'm going to do is just put XXX, just so it's a placeholder. And then that really should be it. You can just set up all of your, how you want the text to look, etc., the size and all that. But all we have to do now in the stamina to get that to update to the right thing is to drag this text into the acronym, and we change that to TMP for Text Mesh Pro, and then we can drag that in there. And then what we'll do is we'll duplicate this and put it inside the health and give the health text, and then bring that down to there. And then we can do the same here. So change that to Text Mesh Pro, put that in there. And that we should see STA, and we should see, where's the HP? We should see HP. So let's see if that worked. And yep, there it is. It updated those automatically. So it's working. So that's pretty good. The other thing you could do is put a background on a background image on here, so that when it goes down, there's like another color behind it. You can easily do that. If you look at the examples in the stats, I think in the HUD, I think it is, no, player stats HUD. If you look in here in the examples, stats UI examples, if you go into the player stats HUD, you could actually get an example of a HUD, which they're showing you here, of a health bar, which is the top one. So they have an image with a black color, that's like the background below it. And then we've got something called health stall and health bar, and they're both images. And the health bar is the attribute UI, and it's using the color, updating the color, so it'll get the red color. And the image fill is just going to this. The health stall is using itself, it's not updating the color, so it'll be white. But what it does is it uses this when decrement transition. So there's like a stall duration. So there's a little bit of a delay when the health gets updated. So this health stall thing is on top of it, I guess. So it's sort of, it makes like a delay, and there's no delay in the health bar. So the health bar gets updated automatically. This health stall is like an animation, almost like a delay. So it takes 0.75 seconds to transition into it once the health gets decremented. So that's another thing you could do. Or you could also just copy this out and paste it into your scene and just use this as the basis of your health bar, right? So you could do that. So we could paste that in, and then we have this health, and let's make sure it's underneath this panel. Okay. So if I delete, if I like go like this, health, let's see, where is it? We have to make sure it's inside here. There we go. So we can just put it there and see what this looks like. And it already has HP attributes, so it should just work. So let's see what it does. So there's your health bar. And then when the health changes, see that the white thing going down, that's the stall effect when it goes down. So it gives you like a little animation transition thing. So, but that's about it. So that's the basics of using the stats module to update your UI. So I'll just take this one away and put the other one back. But so that's the basics of it. So so just for the project cleanup a little bit because of the changes we made, I deleted that UI manager that was under health, and the stamina manager that was under this stamina here. I moved it up here under the player because it makes more sense to put it next to the health manager. So you have it there. So you just drag it up, and there's no other changes required. And then you just have just the UI elements itself left over in the panel. So it cleans it up quite a bit by using the stats module. So that's all for this video. So if you like this video, you can like, subscribe, comment down below. If you would like to support the channel, and it's no requirement whatsoever, but if you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon link below, and you can get early access to the videos, and you could get access to the project file that I'm using for this video. So that's it for this video, and we will see you in the next one.